Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in on this special live Sunday edition of the Card King Sports and Variety Show. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program a former starting pitcher who played for the 1982 Boston Red Sox. I welcome in Brian Denman. Brian, thanks for being on. I appreciate your time.
Oh, happy to do it, Brian. Thank you for thinking about me.
Absolutely. Always an honor to speak to a professional athlete. So, Brian, I'm browsing your history in baseball, and I see that during the 70s you attended the University of Minnesota, and you played for Coach Dick Seabird. Is that correct?
Yes. I was there from 1975 to 1977.
Right, and something that caught my eye, I know Dick Seabird was the old Brooklyn Dodger player, and he also played for the Philadelphia Athletics and the Cardinals, and I often wonder, how was it to play for a professional baseball player? Did he teach you well?
Oh, he was a living legend at Minnesota. When you grew up in Minnesota and you wanted to play baseball, you wanted to go to the University of Minnesota. He very seldom needed to recruit out of the state of Minnesota. He got all the good players that he wanted out of there, and he was just one of those old school coaches that I really needed at the time of point in my life.
Yeah, and like during the late 70s, you're playing in the Cape Cod League, and you were credited as the winning pitcher in the league's All-Star game, which was held at Fenway Park. What's ironic is that you pitched at Fenway Park, and then a couple of years later, you're playing for the team. Was that unexpected?
That was very unexpected. I had been drafted by the California Angels in the summer '77 draft in the 14th round, but I didn't sign with them, and so I went out to the Cape Cod League then, and I just pitched. I used to play first base all week long, and then just pitch once a week at Minnesota, and I just went then to Cape Cod League to pitch all the time to get a routine, and it turned out, and I felt like that was where I needed to go to further my career as a pitcher. The Angels were looking at a first baseman in me, so I decided to not re-enroll in school that fall and wait for the winter draft. So I went in the supplementary draft then to Boston.
And now when the Boston when they selected you, what exactly happened? Did they come? How did you get word? Where exactly were you? When the selection happened, what was your reaction to that? Going to be a Boston Red Sox player.
Well, I knew at the time that I was going to sign with somebody. After the supplemental draft, whoever picked me, that was, my options were very limited at the time, and I remember I just got a call from one of the scouts. It turned out to be one of the Midwestern scouts for the Red Sox, and he mentioned that the Red Sox had selected me, and he offered me a small amount of money, and I took it, and then in '78, I went down to Winter Haven, Florida for my first spring training.
I mean, that is amazing. So '78 comes around. I mean, you're drafted first round by the Red Sox. So, I mean, that's an achievement on its own, being drafted, first round.
Well, it's a little misnomer there, Brian. I was the first round of the supplemental draft, so that means that the eligible players were a lot less than, let's say, the spring draft, the summer draft, where everybody's out of college. the ones that in the supplemental are players, students, let's say, that didn't want to re-enroll back in school, or junior college players. So the field was a lot smaller to choose from than, let's say, the regular draft in the summer there, the spring of '77. So I mean, it looks good on paper, but it really didn't mean a whole lot if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I mean, it must have been exciting, or you must have been thrilled that you were going to make it. You made it to the major leagues. I mean, that's extremely difficult to do.
Oh my gosh, I had a chance to chase a dream for 9 years. I mean, I played once the Red Sox signed me. I had a chance to play for 9 years. So, and I just had an opportunity to get to the major leagues. It was shorter than I was hoping for. It was only 9 starts up in 1982, but it was a thrill of a lifetime. Like I said, I had a chance to chase a dream for 9 years, and it was very exciting for me, very, very good. And the way it turned out, I met my wife out east here, and we were married in '83, and we've been married 41 years now. So baseball was very good to me.
We're talking with the 1982 Boston Red Sox pitcher Brian Denman, who's on the telephone line, and he joins us this morning. And, Brian, 1978 till about 1982, looking at your stats here, I mean, you were putting up some strong numbers in the minors, going with a record of 51 wins, 22 losses. You had about a 426-27 strikeout record and a 2.69 ERA. So, I mean, you were performing exceedingly well, in the minor leagues. Did you find it challenging when you first got there?
Oh, it was all a challenge, because the question mark's always there. If especially in sports, is like, do I belong? Do I don't belong? And see where you fit in or whatever. I mean, A-ball was I was 22 years old at the time, and I played in the Florida State League, and usually younger. It was one of the top A leagues, but there's a lot of 18 and 20-year-old players there that I had a little advantage of them. I always wondered why I stayed around in let's say in A-ball with the numbers I had. I thought maybe I deserved to move up, and then when I was in Double A, I put up some good numbers. But there's a purpose for everything, and I was just blessed enough to have a chance to see the major leagues, and so it was very exciting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, you speak about that A-ball around 78, I believe. You're playing for the Winter Haven team, and I mean, you had a phenomenal season. I believe you had about 16 wins that season in 78 with a 2.05 ERA. I mean, so you were one of the highlights on that team yourself, along with Chico Walker, who was also on this program, and Rich Gedman. So that's a terrific record, going 16 wins.
Well, we actually had a very talented team that year. Reed Nichols played for us. Reed played in the major leagues with the Red Sox and then the White Sox, I believe, too. But that was my most learning year, I think. I played for a manager. His name was Rex Slider, and he taught me a lot about the game. I wasn't real disciplined back then, and Brian, as I think back on it, maybe that was one of the reasons why I didn't move up as fast as I did. I didn't have my priorities right back then. I flew by the seat of my pants sometimes, and as I look back on it, I should have been more dedicated to my trade than I was. So, hindsight's great, but I mean, for where it got me now and what I have in life, I don't think I'd change much.
And what can you tell us about '79? Your recollection playing for Bristol, the Bristol Red Sox. I know that team had the legendary Wade Boggs on the squad. Did you get a chance to interact with Wade Boggs?
'79 was a good year. I had 14 wins that year.
You did well. Yep.
Actually tied with the lead league with Bob Walk, who got to the Philly organization later on. He played out of Reading, but at the end of that year, I had trouble with my wrist in my last start, and it turned out that I had a crack in my wrist bone, and the ligament was pulling it away from the bone. So eventually, towards the end of that winter of '80, I had surgery done to reattach a ligament and remove a bone chip, and so it set me back a little bit. But playing with Wade Boggs, it was we were two different personalities. So I mean, you have players on a team. You have 20-something players, and they're all from all over the United States and sometimes out of the United States. So, I mean, like anything, you're going to click with certain people and not click with certain people. And Wade was a loner, basically. He was married at the time, and he basically, he had a goal that he wanted to achieve, and he was very dedicated to do it. But he was kind of a loner, so I personally didn't interact too much with him, but he was another one that sometimes you wait for a break in this game, and he could have stuck in the minor leagues for forever, just like I could have too. Where in my case, a pitcher fell in the shower and got hurt, and that gave me my opportunity to get moved up in 1982. So. It's a funny game, and Wade Boggs he had to wait till Carney Lansford got hurt for him to get a chance. So there's a lot of guys in the AAA that I feel could play in the major leagues every day, but they unfortunately just don't get a chance.
Yeah, you speak about your injury. I mean, 1980, you only appeared in 10 games. I think you had a wrist operation. But then you came back strong in '81, and you pitched a full season. You went 15-3, which was phenomenal, with a 2.44 record. So, I mean, you got back on track with vengeance in 1981.
Well, '81 was a funny year because I had made the AAA club out of spring training, and we had went on the road then for Pawtucket. We went to Syracuse and Rochester the first 6 days of the season. And it turned out that Linda lived in Buffalo, New York, my wife, because that's how we met. So I had a chance to see her. She came and saw me then play in Rochester. So when we got back to Pawtucket, we had a day off, and it was Easter Sunday, I believe, we had off. And I got called into Joe Morgan's office, and he goes, we're sending you down. They'd made a trade for Manny Sarmiento, and they needed a roster spot. So I got moved down to Double-A, and I stayed in Double-A the whole year then. And we did have a very successful year. We ended up winning the league championship, which was very nice. And but sometimes that's what the game will do to you. I mean, I felt like I should have been in AAA, but it didn't happen, and that's what happens.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating. I mean, I never played to your level, but it must be frustrating. Like, what do you got to do to prove yourself to get to the big stage? Right? I mean, it must be so frustrating.
Well, it's very frustrating because number one is, you always think you're better than what you are, okay? And it really doesn't matter what you think. It depends on, realistically, what the people in the front office believe, or also at the same time what your manager thinks of you and everything else. But the most important thing is how are you doing at the time possibly when they need a spot filled. So it's a lot of variables fall in there too, and it's. I mean, I personally myself, I wasn't I was fairly good size, but I wasn't a fire bowler pitcher. Let's say back then if you threw 90 something, then I mean you were a flamethrower back then. But I was basically just a sinker slider type pitcher, so I wasn't a hard thrower. I think Boston they wanted hard throwing right-handers at that time with that wall in Fenway. So I mean it's a funny game, a very funny game.
So now 1982. So you get up to the big stage and playing for the Red Sox. What do you recall about your very first major league appearance?
Well, Linda and I were in Pawtucket. I got a call from the farm director saying that Bobby Heat had fallen in the shower, and they wanted you to fly out to Oakland. And this was on a Friday, and you'll be starting on Sunday. So I really didn't have a whole lot of time to digest what it was, but I remember I got off the phone, I looked at Linda, and, we were all very excited. And of course, I called home and, talked to my mom and dad back in Minnesota. But all I remember is in 1982, that was the year that Rickey Henderson broke Lou Brock's stolen base record. And realistically, all I thought about is, I'm going to face Rickey Henderson, the first guy I face in the major leagues. I'm going to walk him. He's going to steal every base. I'm going to be down 1-0, and that basically was my thought.
Is that really what you you were really thinking that, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's how it's a very mental game. I think as any sports or whatever, but that was just my own insecurity things coming out. And the ironic thing is, I go to the start and I throw the first 3 pitches for balls against them. I'm thinking, oh my gosh! I go, I really didn't think that was going to happen, but then it kind of creeps in your mind. But the way it turned out, I threw a strike, and the next pitch he just missed the ball and flew out the center, and then. After that, I got my first win, which was very exciting.
Yeah, you did get your first win. I think that was a September game, right? Was that the September 1st, 82 game, Oakland and Boston, where you beat them? I think you beat them twice.
Right. The first time I beat them in Oakland, that was my first start. That was like August, I think it was August 22nd, if I remember right. And then I faced them again at home, and
you got your second win off them, I believe.
I did. I only got 3 wins all year, so thank God for the Oakland A's there. But it was a thrill because Billy Martin was the manager of the Oakland A's at the time. And it turned out that when Billy Martin was managing the Minnesota Twins, because I grew up a Twins fan. I grew up in a suburb of Minneapolis, which we used to ride our bikes out to Metropolitan Stadium and watch the Twins play. And but Billy Martin then was the manager, and it turned out to be that his mother lived in the town that I lived in. She lived on, our streets went by letters. I lived on Russell, and Billy Martin's mother lived on Knox. So so I had a chance to. I went to his office and talked to him, anyways, after the game, which was a thrill, anyways, And then I told him the story and everything else. So it was a very exciting day for me all the way around.
And Brian, I'm originally from New York City, and you're famously known around the Bronx. Your name is famously known for shutting out the Yankees. In that '82 season.
Well, that was that was my last major league start, and
yes.
Which was, if you tell somebody or whatever, you think, you shut out the Yankees in Yankee Stadium against Dave Righetti. Now, it wasn't. It was towards the end of the year, and it wasn't their A team actually, but. If you look at it now, who would even know, But I never saw the big leagues again. I was still on big league rosters, but that was my last official major league game to pitch.
So you left baseball with a mark, and then what happened? So what happened after the '82 season? You just decided to. Go away. And did you work for any of the organizations during when you left baseball?
Well, I actually didn't leave baseball until 1986. 1986 was my last year, and I played my last 2 years, 85 and 86, for the Tiger organization in Nashville. And I actually got to the major league camp again with the Tigers in '86. I had a good year in Nashville. I had 10 wins in '85, and then we had a chance to go to spring training with the Tigers, and I had a good spring, and I thought I had a chance to make the club out of spring training, but I got called in. Sparky Anderson was the manager. I got called in his office, and I come in, and Sparky's got his back to me, and he's pulling his pants up. He's got his underwear on. He's just changing, and then, he basically didn't even look at me. He just goes, Brian, we're sending you down. And, it had happened to me before, like 3 other times, 3 with the Red Sox and now the one with the Tigers. So this time I thought, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to ask him. I go, Sparky, if you don't mind me asking, I go, why? He goes, Brian, he goes, you know something? He goes, you threw as well as anybody here. He goes, but, he goes, that's just the way it is. He goes, go get him. And I knew the conversation was over, and I had left then. But I kind of knew at that time it was time to get out of the game. My wife and I thought we'd give it one more chance. I became very spiritual, and realized that I was given another chance, and I thought I'd try it, and it just, when somebody tells you that, it's like, what can you do? I knew then it was time to get out, but to answer your question, then after the '82 season, I went to spring training in '83, and that's when they had Oil Can Boyd, they had Roger Clemens, they had Mike Brown. Now, all 3 higher draft choices than me, and a lot of times that's the way it works. They've got more investment in those players, and they were given a chance. I go to spring training, and I get 3 innings, and that's all. And the only reason I did is because one of the pitchers couldn't go that day. So I kind of realized that with the Red Sox, my days have been done, but I still had a big league roster. I was still on their 40-man roster in '83 and '84 again. And '84 was my last year. I asked them for a trade, but they weren't going to trade me. I was basically one of those ones that was like an insurance policy, and if something happened, maybe I would have got a call. But that's just the way the game is too. So '84, then at that time, once you were with the club for 6 years and you got taken off the major league roster, you became a free agent. So then I looked around at teams and everything else, and the Tigers then were just opening up their first year in Nashville. I was told by the general manager from the Twins, because I'd called them first, because I thought what a gas it'd be to go home and play in Minnesota, but he said I'd just get lost in the numbers there too. And then I asked him, I go, is anybody looking? And he told me the Tigers were looking to stack their Nashville team with some established players, and so I called him, and we spent our last 2 years, '85 and '86, in Nashville, and our first daughter was born down in Nashville. So, I mean, I like I said, I was very blessed. I had a chance to see a lot of things that I never would have without the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would have had the same question for Sparky. I mean, not taking anything from Sparky. I mean, he's a brilliant manager, but in '86, you're playing for the Nashville Sounds. I mean, you lead the squad with 10 wins, right? You and I believe Jeff Robinson led that squad with 10 wins, and I would have had the same question for Sparky. Like, why am I going down?
Right, but that was the year then, because sometimes it's just a numbers game. That was the year then, too, that the Tigers had Jeff Robinson and Mike Henneman, which they were making him a reliever then. And, I mean, you could tell that, you could just tell when certain slots are opened up for certain people because, number one, they have more money invested in them, and they're going to give them a better opportunity to do it. So it makes them look good, and it kind of helps the player along, too. I had that opportunity realistically, Brian, when I was younger. When I was going well during the year, it was like I was always the one that was bumping somebody else out of the rotation because I was, because of the time. So it kind of came around full circle, and I got bit by it, too. So, I mean, but that's kind of the game.
Yeah, and I know, I'm looking at the roster. I know Matt Noakes was also on that '86 team. Now, was he your catcher at that time, Matt Noakes?
Matty Noakes was the catcher at the time. Sparky loved him. He just loved him, and I mean, he was young and raw and everything else. He had a lot of work to do as catcher, but they loved his bat, and if you could hit, they'd find a spot for you.
Unbelievable. And Matt Noakes, who became a Yankee later on. Now, just my final question: Rich Gedman was a catcher as well, right? If I believe.
Richie, I played with my first year in Winter Haven. He was a 18-year-old, just basically a young, naive boy. He came out of basically a religious school out of Massachusetts, and he was very raw. He was, here we were 22 years old, and we used to play a couple pranks on him and have some fun with him, but he was another one that he had never caught before too much, but you could just tell from the beginning that this kid was going to be good. He could hit, he had a solid body, and he could throw. So, plus he was a great kid too.
Well, listen, Brian, you did a great job. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, I'll tell you, I probably chattered on too much, so I apologize for that. But I had fun.
It was great. It was great. We're going to keep in touch. We'll speak soon. Brian Denman of the 1982 Boston Red Sox. Until next week, happy collecting to all.